Hello, everybody, and welcome back again.
Yes,
Tonight, we are going to talk about.
Jack the Ripper. Yeah,
Yes.
everyone has known the story about Jack the Ripper, conspiracy theory or not. There are many movies made about Jack the Ripper. Um, a few conspiracy theories is that the killer was a royal with syphilis, and they talked about doctors, uh, even presumed to be a woman. And there were many names mentioned. I name a few, not all, because the list is very long, 30 names. So we had Sir William Guild and Randolph Churchill, family of Winston Churchill, um, Walter Sickert, but also Mary Piercy, Florence Maybrick, H. Holmes was
Hmm.
mentioned, and Prince Albert Victor, but also Aaron Kosminski. And now it's getting interesting for us because tonight we're sticking on facts and not the fiction. And that's why we brought in Russell Edwards.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hello,
Hello,
hello.
guys.
Yeah,
Hi.
thank you for joining us. Um, I dropped a few names, like Prince Albert, Victor, and everyone. Um, we are sticking to the facts tonight, and yeah, small facts. 1888, August 31st, the first victim, Marianne Nichols. September 8th, Annie Chapman. September 30th, Elizabeth Stride. Then also September 30th, Catherine Eddowes. And November 9th, Mary Jane Kelly. The last one, first question pops into my head. She was so brutally attacked. Is she a victim of Jack the Ripper?
What, Mary Jane Kelly?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. As you're probably aware, most serial killers escalate what they do to the victims, and this was very clear in this series of murders. You know, this happened over 10 weeks. That's all it was. It was a 10-week period. So it was a very,
Yes.
very quick, four more or less in a month, then a 5-week break, then the fifth one, and then he vanished. And this mystery, do you know, I'm reminded of like JFK when he goes to Dallas and it's just over, and so he goes there within minutes, within days, he's leaving in a coffin, and the mystery's just done. It's the same with this, that type of who done it, you know, and again, conspiracy theories. At the last count, there were 161 so-called, or should I say, made-up suspects. In fact, there were only
Okay.
ever three officially named.
There was also a point they mentioned out it was a woman.
Well, that's interesting because you said Mary Piercy and she was called Jill the Ripper. But in fact, what happened with her, so I was outside her house about 2 months ago, where not her house, where she committed the murders over in Camden. And basically, she murdered her lover's wife and murdered the baby, and then took the body of the baby in a pram, and walked a very long way up to Hampstead and got caught. And very quickly, she was hanged for the murders. And Sir Melville McNaughton, that was involved in the Ripper case, was involved in that case as well. But no, Mary Piercy was definitely not the killer of these five women.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. Wow. Interesting.
Mm.
Very interesting. Um, well, you jumped into the Jack the Ripper story. Can you take us along the road?
Sure. Well, most people ask, how did I get involved in this? In fact, for many years, I still am an entrepreneur. So I do lots of business outside of this story. But I'd been in the East End for since 1989, and I'd been there 11 years enjoying the East End. I love the curry house. I love the area. There is something extremely magnetic. And for those who love the East End as I do, I'm sure they'll understand this draw to this area. It's quite unique. I feel very, I don't know about other people, but I feel very displaced in other parts of London. And I do feel East End's my spiritual home. If we go back to the 18th century, it was an area where French immigrants came, the Huguenots, and set up a silk weaving industry, hence these beautiful Georgian houses. By the time we get to the 19th century, there was a massive flood of the Jewish population that just they had to flee their own homes to evade the Russian pogroms. And late 20th century, the Bangladeshi community moved in about really late, I would say a little bit of the late 60s, but mainly the mid to late 70s, and been here ever since. And it's the only time I've ever known it, and it's just truly wonderful. So I'd been here for 11 years, and it wasn't until I saw a film From Hell with Johnny Depp, a Jack the Ripper film, truly amazing. A great
Yeah,
depiction of Sir William Gull, again, the Queen's physician in his 70s. He'd already had 2 strokes, clearly not the Ripper, but a great story all the same. And then I questioned, where's all these murder sites? Where is this story, Jack the Ripper? And it did turn out that I'd been walking in his footsteps for 11 years and didn't know. And that's
Oh,
really where the story started. From
wow.
there, yeah, what I did is a Ripper tour the very next day. And then on the Monday, so film Friday, tour Saturday, Monday morning, I called Scotland Yard and asked if this case was real. They put me through to the Black Museum, and they told me the entire case, what exists, is at the National Archives in Kew. And any of us, anybody at all, can actually go there, do their own research. You just take a pencil, 2 forms of ID, and you're away. And that's
nice.
exactly what I did. Yeah, that's exactly what I did.
Cool.
But very, very quickly, you realise when you do the research, you're never going to solve this case because there's just simply no physical evidence. And with all the hearsay, and as you well know, I think the word is obfuscation. So people like to make this a mystery, throw another suspect, and make it more mysterious, when in fact that's just not the real story at all.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until March 2007 where I got a call saying there was a shawl for sale that was taken from the fourth murder of Jack the Ripper. So it was by Catherine Eddowes' body. Did I really then get involved? And that's really where the story started.
Yeah, I heard about the show.
Yeah,
That was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, it was.
but getting DNA from an object that old,
yeah, yeah.
it's a
That, that's exactly it. So I realised quite quickly that just a I say common scientist, there's no such thing. A scientist would need to be a specialist in ancient DNA to do this work, and more importantly, a scientist that could get uncontaminated samples containing DNA, which is more important because we didn't know who'd actually held the shawl in the 120 odd years at the time I bought it. I've owned it now for 17 years. but it's been in the family of who is descended from the acting sergeant who was at the crime scene on the night of the murder, and it's passed down
Mm.
his family, and that's who I bought it from, one of the descendants. There's a couple of things. Um, it was proven to be silk, so that's how we knew it wasn't the victim's shawl, it was the Ripper's. But the shawl, skin cells on on silk, they only last on there for about a year, and then they fall off. So that presented itself a quite easy solution. But the genius of the scientist that worked with me for all those years, Dr. Jari Luhalainen, he managed to get uncontaminated cells embedded in the weave. So in fact, he went to the nth degree. So I think it was laser capture micro dissection he used, and he got a singular cell that we also got DNA from. So it was contamination. He managed to just eliminate that altogether. But an exceptional genius of a man, with my greatest respect. And when we got DNA on the shawl, it had arterial blood spatter, so from the throat, because we know that the victims had their throats cut, consistent with slashing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the one thing that was clearly brought it to the murder scene. But there was also evidence of split body parts that are incredibly difficult to forge. So it's like human body organs had been placed on there. And when Yori did sample that part, we did find a kidney cell. And we knew that Catherine Eddowes, that night, he took her body parts, he took a kidney and a uterus. So that was like a smash of, you know what, this is it for us. There was also semen on the shawl as well. But when I first bought it, it was called the Eddowes shawl because everybody assumed it was owned by Catherine Eddowes. We knew she had no money, and we knew that she'd sold the body through sheer desperation. So we thought that semen at the time I bought the shawl was just the customer's sort of ejaculate, like, so we just ignored it. It wasn't until we actually established that through lots of scientific analysis, and this was 4 years of work, not just overnight, couple of months. It was 4 years. We established that it wasn't her shawl at all. That the only person that could have left the shawl at that scene was the murderer, and hence that's what brought us onto the semen on the shore.
Mm.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
That's quite a
Yeah,
story.
and because it
Wow.
wasn't known about the DNA analysis back then,
yeah,
No,
it didn't matter, I think.
that's correct. In
Yeah.
fact, the crime scenes were washed down, and life just carried on. So, as you say, Miriam and Polly Nichols at Bucks Row, Essex Wharf at the Gate Yard where her body was discovered, that was just washed down with buckets of water, and literally life just went on. I only posted yesterday the crime scene of the fifth murder victim, which for me is still the most horrendous and horrific crime scene photo ever. John McCarthy, who basically owned that room, he washed it down, cleaned down the mattress, which, if you see the atrocities he did to Mary, it's beyond belief. And he just rented the room out again, whitewashed the walls, and you can still see the blood stains underneath. So this was
Wow.
just, and all the clothes were burnt. You know, all the clothes were burnt. So we're exceptionally lucky, specifically me, that the shawl was asked. Amos Simpson asked if he could take it, and they allowed him to take it.
Mm.
And many people don't believe what Remember, anybody can write on Wikipedia, and they do. So don't believe everything you read. We know that the shawl was taken literally home to his wife, who then passed it on to their niece Eliza, and down the family tree. But that's the only piece of physical evidence that exists directly linking to the murder.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I have nothing
Makes it
else
all
to
the
say.
more mysterious.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've been on it for 24 years. It seems to be the mystery for everybody is out there. I do find with people very much putting on their own ideas of who the suspect is on my page. This is a case of education.
Mm-hmm.
This is what this is. It's always been known who he was. He was actually named and identified not long after after he committed the murders. And the fact is, just people refuse to believe it. So if you read a book, it's people's opinion or their version of the truth. If you
Hmm.
watch a documentary, most documentaries on the Ripper are take a name out of a hat and make everything fit. And the most comical one for me is H.H. Holmes. You would
Yeah.
have had to have an intimate knowledge of Whitechapel and Spitalfields at the time to avoid capture. H.H. Holmes certainly would have had the time to do that. You would have had an intimate knowledge of the area. He certainly
Yeah.
didn't. Buffalo Bill was
No.
in London, I think, at the time. I'm surprised he wasn't named as a suspect. Or wherever you guys live, if there's a murder 50 miles away from you, you could be a suspect. That's how ridiculous this actually became. And I do
Yeah.
remember Budget asking me to take part. And I said, why? We've already solved who it is. So he's the descendant of H.H. Holmes. And it's just, people just want to believe because they just don't know the truth.
No.
And
Exactly.
all these years, that's what I've provided.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sam says it was normal back then. Plus, they sold everything, even the body, if they could.
Yeah.
People were
It would
weird
make
back then.
money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
People were pretty creepy back then.
Yeah. This was not an area that was a nice area to go. This was a really vile, virulent area.
Yeah.
Interesting,
Yeah.
on the Booth poverty map of when the streets are black, it says semi-criminal and violent. There's certain areas where police would walk down into Dorset Street being one of them, which is
Mm.
where this, Andy Chapman, the second victim, Catherine Eddowes, the fourth victim, used to doss in those streets. And the fifth victim, Mary Kelly, lived on that street as well, just off the street in Miller's Court. So this isn't
Mm.
an area that was nice at all. The
No.
children, known as urchins, waifs, strays, would have to fend for themselves, back then. And this is what I post every day of just the slum life that people live down there, you know.
Yeah.
Not
Sharing
forgetting, not
almost
forgetting,
everything.
yeah,
Yeah, because I think it's so interesting. It's intriguing.
yeah,
And
It
for a
is.
long time, I think I've seen all the Jack the Ripper movies. And yeah, so all these suspects, and you dive into it and into it again and again and again. And
yeah,
then you hear, yes, we have a new suspect, and watching again.
yeah,
So I was intrigued the first moment I saw a post about naming Jack the Ripper. But
fantastic.
you you had the DNA and you didn't know who it was. How did that search go?
Well, no, it's the other way around. We knew who it was because what happened was when I decided to buy the shawl, I had to find a reason. And I knew it had been in Scotland Yard's Crime Museum all through the 90s. So I called the curator of the Black Museum, and he said he didn't believe it was real, but, go and do your own research. And it was the pattern on the shawl that really is the key to this story. The pattern on the shawl is Michaelmas daisies. Now, Michaelmas is an Eastern Orthodox Christian celebration and Western Christian celebration celebrated on two specific dates of the year. That's the 29th of September and the 8th of November. And those are the nights he went out and he murdered 3 of his 5 victims. So it's directly linked. So why was the shawl left at the murder scene? Because in his own way, this cryptic clue he was given the world the date of the next murder. And it just happened to be absolutely spot on. And that's why the shawl was left there. And out of
Mm.
everybody on this planet over 136 years, it's only ever been me that's actually pieced that together. That's the clue that actually changed my life. And that's the clue that when I told Scotland Yard about that link, they gave me the name. So I had the name straight away.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. If I didn't, I'd
Wow.
still be doing the analysis now. you know?
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm totally flabbergasted.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But
You can drop in some questions, Shane. Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted to ask the same. Wanted to ask if I could ask a question because it was presumed there were 11 murders. What's your thought about that?
No, there were 11 murders, but they weren't all attributed to him. So 5 murders were attributed to him, or the canonical 5. And that's because of the MO, the way that they were murdered, the position they were laying, and the fact that body parts were taken. There's 2 murder victims before. I always discuss this on my tours. So Martha Tabram was murdered 3 weeks before the first Ripper victim, Polly Nichols. She was stabbed 39 times. Now that's a very strong, it's like a personal attack on a woman. Rather than just stabbing and strangling, he stabbed and he stabbed and he stabbed. Now, again, with all what goes on in this world, which I sort of don't get involved in whatsoever now, if a woman gets stabbed 39 times in London, that would be all over the news until the murder is found. So I do believe Martha Tabram was his first attempt, but I would never be able to prove that. We know that there were 5. There was Emma Smith on the 3rd of April, 1888. She was attacked by 3 youths, she said, or 3 teenagers, who basically beat her to the ground and left her for dead. And she just managed to crawl home to a doss house and taken to the London hospital. She became the first Whitechapel murder victim on the 4th of April, 1888. Then there were 4 murders after Mary Kelly, so it's a 2.5-year period. Now, we know, that, which I'm sure I'll be telling you shortly, why those murders weren't attributed to him. They were lesser. They certainly weren't as violent. And even though there's some similarities that were actually given in the press anyway, they weren't his victims.
That is very interesting.
Yeah. There's one other murder. I saw a documentary. It can be fabricated by the maker. There was also a child found, and also almost decapitated.
Yeah.
It was horrible, and they assumed that the boy was a victim of Jack the Ripper because the similarity of the murders. Did you hear anything about that?
Yeah, no. No, again, if you look at serial killers, they murder in the zone. I would say psychosexual type. So if you're a gay male or a homosexual male, you're going to murder men.
Yeah.
If you're a straight woman, you're going to murder men. You know, if you're a straight male, you can murder women. And he had a type, and that's what he stuck to. But it's very interesting you say about the woman being decapitated. So there is one of the 11. It's called the Pinchin Street Torso. Now she was found murdered. Well, the torso was found about 10 minutes walk from his front door, and only less than 7 minutes from the 3rd murder scene, that of Elizabeth Stride. And the date of that murder was the 10th of September, 1889. Sorry, 1889. That's right, the year after the murders. Now that just happens to be the day before his birthday. So that's an interesting. You know, nobody ever knows with that one. But it's just
I heard about that.
Yeah.
But because the man we are talking about now, from who the name is known now, he was a suspect before.
He was named. There's only 3 suspects.
Yeah.
And he was named. I think it was February 1891 with the McNaughton Memorandum. So the 3 were Michael Ostrog, Montague John Druitt, and only the surname Kosminski. Montague John Druitt only because he was found dead in the Thames this month in 1888. In fact, only yesterday his brother was told about his disappearance in 1888. That's the only link. But he was dismissed from an all-boys private school, and I think that's something to do with why he committed suicide. Michael Ostrog, on the other hand, and this is the strange why Michael Ostrog was named, because even though Ostrog came from a village just north of where Kosminski came from, he was in his 50s, and he was also incarcerated at the time of one of the murders. So it's so strange that he was even named.
Exactly.
it says strong homicidal tendencies, a bitter hatred for women.
Yeah.
1 + 1 equals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I forgot what I was. She did some questions. Now I lost it.
I'll just make it up.
Normally it's the other way around. Normally,
Yeah.
I could just go figure out some questions. I'm like, oh, we have this one, that one. Now she did some question. I have to like, where are we? I lost it. It's like a quiz
It
now.
popped up. They just
I feel like I'm in school now.
Yeah.
You talk, because now I'm lost.
Okay. So,
okay.
The biggest question is, or one of the big questions, never mind.
Yeah.
The name Jack the Ripper. Why Jack the Ripper? Because if that name was never created, we certainly wouldn't be sitting here. There were about 8 and 10. There were a series of very brutal murders, just as equally as violent and awful, in the Ratcliffe Highway, where 2 families were butchered. Actually, now, this time of year, right now, nearly 200 years ago. And that guy was just Matthews, I think his name was. He was found. He hanged himself in prison before he was hanged officially, and then he was buried in a crossway at the Ratcliffe Highway, Cannon Street, north, I think it is. And they put a stake through his heart, so his body couldn't leave. And if his soul ever came up on a crossroads, it couldn't go. His soul would not know which way to go, north, south, east, or west. We get to Jack the Ripper, the Dear Boss letter that was received by the Central News Agency on the 27th of September, 2 days before the double event, 1888, gives the name Jack the Ripper. That's what sensationalized this story. And because 2 women were murdered literally 2 days after, that name stuck. And that's what really fueled this story. Again, it was the press that did this. And lo and behold, the person that wrote that Dear Boss letter, written in Reading, by the way, turned out to be an enterprising journalist. It wasn't even written by the murderer. So it was the press fueling the story. And sensation. Still, even here we are, 136 years after the fact, we're still talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, the press is still having his hands in the mysterious suspects.
Yeah.
I don't even know why to bother. You know, no. I put something on my page the other day. The New York Times in 1910 actually put it on the front page, who it was. And it's like, people are like, really? Okay, well, no, I believe it was him. There is only one documentary that's worth watching, and that's the Peter Ustinov documentary back in 1988, when all the files were released to the public. Because I don't know if you're aware in the UK that there's a 100-year rule. So nobody could actually access those files until 1988. So that was that was the best, most real documentary ever made. And the other thing, that was the year that Michael Caine starred in the film Jack the Ripper as Inspector Abberline.
I have to look at that.
It's a good one. And as you say, the films, that there are so many films, but another one that I would recommend to anybody is Murder by Decree, which is where Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, I've seen that. Yes.
Yeah.
I have to watch it again. Yeah. Sherlock Holmes.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Robbie Gregory says, weird to think that the famous Jack the Ripper name was an invention by a journalist. It is weird in my eyes.
Yeah. It didn't come out, so I think, the 1920s. And when you ask yourself, so what I do with so many great people who follow me, I ask them this, and I put you in the spotlight and you in the shoes, and say, okay, so just imagine being that journalist that invented that name, and you couldn't tell anybody.
Yeah, that would be
horrible,
to say the least.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you know what? In a way, he was indirectly responsible for the the murders 2 days after. Of course, it coincided.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just if we look at in the UK in the 70s, there was a sadistic killer called the Yorkshire Ripper, Peter Sutcliffe, and there was some guy from Sunderland from Wearside sent a tape. Remember the old cassette tapes? And he sent 3 letters as well, all signed Jack the Ripper. And he misguided the police. The police looked a different direction when they were very, very close to catching Sutcliffe. And Sutcliffe murdered, I think, 4 more women after that. And then years after, Humble, I think his name was, they found him, the guy that wrote those letters and did that tape, and they put him in prison for 12 years. Right.
12 years.
12 years, yeah, they gave him.
That's not much.
Well, he didn't. He was a murderer. He's just sent the police in the wrong direction. Same as this journalist. Peter Sutcliffe died in prison of COVID a few years ago. He was given life, and it really.
Yeah. Weird.
Yeah, absolutely.
Holmes is another one that is still a mystery. They don't know how many secrets he had.
Sherlock Holmes. Oh, H.H. Holmes.
H.H. Holmes, yeah.
I think when you look at where was it Boston? It was the World's Fair, wasn't it? And he created this murder house.
Yeah, that hotel. He rented out the rooms and with secret chambers and elevator shafts and.
Yeah. What I read, it was 27 or 28 known.
Yeah.
Yeah, a very interesting story. Again, it amazes me that people would believe that he had anything to do with the Ripper murders, but
Some people, they think they know everything, and they want it to be true so they can unravel the mystery.
Yeah, and it's quite funny to me. It does amuse me. Again, I think if you've walked in the footsteps of him, or you've done what I've done over the last 24 years, you realise that if you think of a beach full of pebbles, I've turned over virtually every single one of those. And most people just watch, read a newspaper. Oh, it must be the Ripper. You turned over a pebble, and good luck to you. Yeah,
we have a question. Why do you think it sticks with people? It still intrigues them.
The mystery and the name. It's as simple as that.
The
romance of the Victorian era. People wish they were in that time, but as I've had so much that it wasn't that pleasant. But people just think of that bygone era. There's this fantasy of Victorian London. Again, Sherlock Holmes and Charles Dickens. Or that type of beautiful time in history. And I'm sure it was, a lot of it was, but a lot of it wasn't. And what we've got here is Whitechapel and Spitalfields in East London. That was the worst impoverished area to be. And there was 1 million people living in that in London at the time, and a third of them were poor in that area. So hundreds of thousands of people living in abject poverty. In the middle of all that, there was 1,100 prostitutes just in that it's a very small area. If you ever came over, and I'll take you round, I can point you to the pubs they were drinking. They're in eye shot of each other, the names, everything. It's all very, very small, which is, you could walk it in 20 minutes, the whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah. I've heard that you can do it in 20 minutes, but 1,100 prostitutes.
Yeah, and about 68 brothels as well in that one very small area.
Wow.
So you've got all this going on, and then you've got the madman just set loose, upon inflicting just the worst atrocities. Any murders like this today, they'd be caught very quickly, obviously, but just how horrendous, how horrendous. And these were the days. So when we talk about the victims and we talk about the photographs, Mary, that's one of the very, very first ever crime scene photographs. That one. There was a guy called Dr. Thomas Bond who wrote one of the first ever criminal profiles. And if you ever read that profile, it fits our guy 100%. And it very much feels like he knew who it was, got the whole story, and then did the profile because it's exact.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, I do have to say I got intrigued when I found out my birth father was someone else as my own father. My name is Mary Jean, and my father's surname is Kelly.
No way.
Yes. Absolutely. So I was 18 and we figured it out together. My mom, she loves horrors. And we watched our first Jack the Ripper movie together. And it stuck. It stuck because, oh my God, same name. I don't have a natural red hair, but I was born red. So, yeah, that's why it stuck. And it's so intriguing. Yeah.
She was from Ireland, from a place called Limerick.
Yeah.
I
read it. It was Ireland. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. You should do your family tree. You never know.
Could be.
I've done my family tree, and we come from Switzerland. So nothing with Ireland.
Oh, now I know why you say I am Switzerland when something happens.
Yes.
Now I understand. All right.
Yeah, Davao. We're from Davao. I'm sorry.
We had a question from Robbie. Do you think the killer pre-planned the murders, stalking the victims, or they were opportunists spurred the moment?
Excellent question. I do ask this of my guys as well. Well, it's hard to say, but I would say he knew. I know for a fact that he went out on specific days. Don't know why he started. To be honest, don't know what spurred that on. That's a question that's been bugging me for years. Was he prepared? Was this haphazard? Was this happenstance? I don't think so. I think this guy was a very, very meticulous, I would say emotionally mature, not really. He dealt with this a lot more maturely than he's given credit. I say given credit for. Only 23 when he did these murders, but to be honest, he got away and was never caught, and there was a huge police presence. Plus the vigilance committee walking these streets, he still evaded capture, and it was only through his family that he got caught anyway. So did he wear disguise? There's another one. So many eyewitnesses say, well, we saw him wearing this, we saw him wearing that. So that everyone assumes they're different people, but not really.
All the same.
They could all be the same guy,
Yeah.
Even on the night of the double events when he murdered 2 inside an hour, I've actually got a copy of that document. So Melville McNaughton, Donald Swanson, the head of one of the heads of the investigation, wrote the description of the witnesses, and between the third and fourth murders, that 3 of the 6 things were exactly the same. The only difference was he wore a red neckerchief on the second murder that night, that of Catherine Eddowes. So everyone thinks, oh no, he's different, he's a sailor. But would you go out in a disguise? I say, if you think about it, it does make sense.
Yeah.
I do think he planned it. I know he planned the dates. Were the victims actually specifically chosen? Well, it's interesting because I am writing a graphic novel, and in there I actually put what happened. So Polly Nichols, the last words of Polly were, "Don't worry, I'll soon get my DOS money, see what a jolly bonnet I've got." She had a brand new black straw bonnet that nobody knew where it came from. This has been posed to me many times that was a marker. That was like a keep an eye out for a woman with a black. She's a target. It could be that I've suggested where he gave it to her earlier that evening. Martha Tabram, she didn't have a DOS money, but she said she had money. What I propose is that he actually stole it from her, that he was there with her that night and he nicked it from her. That's why she didn't have any money. So he could have chosen his victims. I would state, now, interesting, because his occupation was hairdresser or hairdresser surgeon. So barbers or hairdressers, they had anatomical knowledge, which he definitely would have had to have. There's no way, the two coroners that were involved both argued with each other. One said no, one said yes.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the meticulous way that he murdered these women and took exactly what he wanted, he would have had to have anatomical knowledge. It's these things that you think, well, okay. So Polly, she was way out the way that night, where a Doss house is in Thrall Street, where she was discovered in Bucks Row. That's a good 25 minutes away, and completely out of an area. The same with Elizabeth Stride, the third murder victim. She's drinking in the Queen's Head pub, which is just the next block up from the 10 Bells, the famous 10 Bells, and Christchurch. It's still there. It's just something else at the calf now. But she's found in Berners Street, and that's nowhere near. That's really out the way. So did he ask her out for a date, and they went out? Because it looked like that was the case that night. She was with a charming man, apparently, a well-dressed man, a guy called Matthew Packer selling grapes from his windowsill. He said he saw them. Who knows? But it was dismissed. So there's a good chance. The one thing to Robbie's question, Mitre Square. Mitre Square's in the city. It's not in the East End, but it's close. If he didn't go and murder two in that night, I do believe Mitre Square would have been one of his possible crime scenes. As it's near the prostitutes' church, which is where he did pick up Catherine Eddowes on the night she fell at his hands. Now it's interesting though. Catherine Eddowes was saying to people, she was heard publicly saying that she knew the identity of the Ripper and she was going to get paid for the information. She's going to be given like 5 shillings, and I got that from the archives. That's not hearsay. That's a testimony. That's somebody's testimony of that. So it's interesting because she'd had no money that night, but she was drunk. So she obviously sold her body. When she was released at 1 o'clock that morning, she was found dead later. She could have gone to meet him at the prostitutes' church, though we'll never know. So she could have had that in mind, but taking that risk of her saying to somebody, oh, such and such and such and such, that could give a name and a description, would give the game away with him. Mary Kelly, the 5th victim, very much so. Mary Kelly, she was a victim because she had her own room. She didn't doss on a day-to-day existence for 4 pennies a night. She had her own room that she lived in. Now, because the police presence was so big, and because you just couldn't walk in Whitechapel without somebody shouting Jack the Ripper and everybody pouncing on you, he waited, and then he chose Mary Kelly specifically, which means he would have known her. He would have had the opportunity. And on the night that she was murdered, a guy called George Hutchinson, he came in about 3 days after, 11th of November 1888, so a good few days after the murder, and gave a statement saying he saw her with a very well-dressed man. And the guy looked very suspicious, and as he walked past him, he sort of gave him a really stern stare. And it's quite weird that George Hutchinson said he followed them, and when they went into her room, that he waited for half an hour. It's just plausible. It's just too fancy. I don't believe that at all. But that there is these things of, well, that's definitely Mary Kelly planned. Catherine Eddowes, a possibility. Elizabeth Stride, why is she out of her comfort zone? She's way out. Incidentally, where Berners Street is, the geography of it is, it's 500 yards from his front door where he lived. So we had to go out and murder. It was very dangerous for him to do that anyway, because he more likely get caught. He was seen, and that's the eyewitness who identified him for the police, that when he's trying to kill. So the great risk he took. And even when he murdered Elizabeth Stride, he was interrupted by a guy called Louis Deemschutz, who was bringing his horse and cart into the stable yard at Duffield's Yard. So he took great risks for a specific reason to murder on those dates. So Elizabeth Stride, that's the other one. And again, Polly, again, it's a good 25 minutes to Bucks Row from where she lived. And it's not really go for a customer. You'd go sort of where the pubs are. And the other thing that's not commonly known is the pubs were only closed 5 hours a day back then. So
they were open a long time.
Yeah.
It's not like nowadays. Nowadays they're closed very early.
Yeah.
You want to go to London? They're not that early. London's still alive.
How late do they close now in London?
The clubs, they go to about 5:30 in the morning now. Normally midnight.
I'm going to live in England.
Yeah.
We close at 2.
12, between 12. It depends on if they got a late license or not. Normally 12. Mind you, it's a long time since I go into pubs now. But
Stupid rule. You mentioned the relatives of I think Jack the Ripper, right?
Yeah, I know.
The stuff came from.
Yeah,
the show came from there.
Oh, yeah, not the relatives of Jack the Ripper, the relatives of the police officer or the sergeant that was there at the murder scene. Yeah,
yeah.
Of course I do. Yeah.
How did you find it? The show.
It was.
How did you hear about it?
My mum gave me a call one day. She knew that I love the East End, and I'd had a look at the Ripper case, and she said that the show was in the press and it was on the TV. That it was for sale, and that's how I found out.
Cool.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So I checked on Wikipedia here in the Netherlands, and there was a section about multiple letters from Jack the Ripper. Do you know anything about that? Because they done some investigation on the post stamps, and they found some DNA on the post stamps, and they were
female. Yeah. So about 94 Ripper letters in total. They found a woman responsible for a lot of them and arrested her. Patricia Cornwell did a really fantastic piece of work of research, and she spent millions on the case, and she was adamant that it was Walter Sickert, and she analysed the letter, the look with the drawings on the letter that matched his drawings, and they are his, and she did get the DNA from a stamp. The things that 1 in 600,000 the chance it would have been him, by the way, but it wasn't him anyway. What we did is we analysed the same stamp, and it turned out to be female DNA. Back then, you give the letter, the postage woman would lick it for you, and she'd send it, not the man. So that's the first thing. The next thing is Walter Sickert wasn't in London at the time of the murders. He was in Paris and he was in France, so he wasn't even in London. And of all the Ripper letters, which were all fake, there was only one that possibly, I'm just wondering, I've actually got it, possibly could be real, and that's the From Hell letter that was sent to George Lusk, head of the Vigilance Committee, on the 16th of October 1888 with half a kidney. It wasn't signed. Every other had, I think it was a homonym, is it? The ha had all and that, because that was in the Dear Boss letter. But this letter was written in a specific way, and it wasn't signed Jack the Ripper.
Okay, but a part of a kidney was sent with it.
Yeah, horrendous. And we know that only weeks before Catherine Eddowes had her kidney taken. And it says, I sent half the kidney, the other half I fried. It was very nice. It was horrendous, to be honest. Now, that kidney, they say that I think Catherine Eddowes was suffering with Bright's disease, and that kidney did have Bright's disease. And they said that the connective tissue to the kidney, to the body, they said that was the same length. But that I didn't research that myself. That's what I've heard. I do know the kidney was sent to Dr. Openshaw, who ran the museum at the Royal London Hospital, where the Elephant Man Joseph Merrick was, and they kept it there for years. So when I've done all the research in their archives, every single paper I've looked at, which eliminates another suspect, not even a suspect, a sailor, and they said, they destroyed it and got rid of it years ago, which seems odd to me, because it wouldn't bother them to keep it in freezer storage for today's date, when we could easily find out if it was hers or not.
Yeah.
That is odd.
Yeah. But the second questions I get asked a lot is things like the Gilster Street It was the chalk handwriting found at 3:00 on the night of the double event. Was it written by him? Because there was a piece of bloodied apron on the floor. Why was it washed off? That's in my new book. That I actually worked that out. Why would a murderer take chalk with him on a night out? When you get your kill kit, your disguise, and you think, I know, I'm going to take a piece of chalk. And so I ask many people, so what profession uses chalk every day? Tailors. Tailors use tailors every day, and all the family are tailors.
Yeah.
I'd like to throw in there, which is for people to debate, is Catherine Eddowes' facial disfiguration that he did. And what he did was he cut her eyelids off, her ear off, her nose off, 2 inverted V's on her cheeks, sliced her lips, cut her throat, ripped her to shreds, took her intestines out, took her kidney and her uterus in less than 5 minutes. When you look at the inflictions on her face, they're quite intricate. So you've actually got to take an eyelid and cut that off in record time. There is a letter that was written a year after that we've, if I give you this exclusive, it is an exclusive, that we've actually dated to be real, where he's said to be attacking a woman with a pair of scissors. I do think that it's very, very quick. He could very quick with a pair of tailor scissors to inflict what he did on Catherine, and he did have time to go home and go back out again. And again, I do know the family of a good few descendants of Catherine's family, who are friends of mine now. I've been friends for years. I do think that the possibility he could have used scissors as well as a knife,
Yeah. If you think about it, they are very fast with scissors.
Yeah, very quick.
Yeah. Hadn't they did have those little scissors, like it was like clippers?
I'm sure they must. Yeah, they must have done. Yeah. He lived with his brother, and he was passed between the 2 brothers and his sister in roughly the same, rarely in the same street, which is Greenfield Street, which is directly opposite Berners Street, as it happens, across Commercial Road. So he was more looked after. So clearly could look after himself. He was never in a relationship. So the DNA we got wasn't from him; it was from his sister's direct female descendants. So that's how we did the DNA match with the semen.
Yeah, now I have a question that pops in, because the murder stopped.
Yeah.
And now the rumors go that he fled somewhere out of the country. What do you think about
that? Yeah. Now you're talking about Tumblety, a quack doctor that was actually trying to buy women's uteruses or uteri for £20 a pop. And then he fled quite quickly after the murders and went to France first, then over to America. Well, that's interesting, Tumblety, because on the 7th of November, 1888, he was arrested for being in a homosexual brothel. So again, you're speaking to somebody that's done every single piece of research on every single person that's ever been named on this story. And so Tumblety was gay. So, of course, we straight go to, well, if he was gay, he would have murdered men.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would say so, but depends on the person, I think.
No. I've done enough research on serial killers to know that's not the case. He was arrested in a gay
brothel. I do my research.
Yeah, so he wouldn't have even been released. So he wasn't even around walking on the streets on the 8th of November for Mary Kelly. But it got too hot for him because he wanted women's uteruses. Now, I was in the Royal College of Surgeons in Lincoln's Inn Fields a couple of months ago. I don't think people realise, when you think of a uterus, you're thinking of a little ball. It's not. It houses the baby. That's what a woman has to house a baby. They're massive. These are little Harry. He took Annie Chapman's uterus. He took Catherine Eddowes' uterus. There was not much left of Mary Kelly to tell. But we know he took Kelly's heart when he left, which again, I'm so battle hardened by this, even it still breaks my heart that he did this. But he took body parts. So I think the link to Tumblety really is to do with that. Then they say about copycat murders. They were, again, press fantasy. They weren't murders. It's interesting. If you actually do the research onto the chief of police over in New York, he said if the Ripper was over in America, they would have caught him straight away. So it's like an arrow shot straight through Abeline's heart. So no, that's just, there's some lines of inquiry, and as I say, 24 years of it. I've literally explored every one of them. Tumblety is just a fictitious suspect, really, that came in a letter, a little child letter, that was sort of, I would say, sensationalized by another police officer called Stuart Evans. The guy I actually stood next to the day I bought the shawl. No, well, the day I was going to buy the shawl. So no, Tumblety certainly wasn't the Ripper. Now, I wouldn't be saying this if I didn't have the DNA. If we didn't prove who it was conclusively through DNA, I would not be wasting my time with this at all. I'm just going on with my business life. But because I feel compelled and very, what's the word I'm looking for, invested in this story to tell the truth, then when people wake up and think, oh my God, this is just exactly what it is. And here's the one thing I get many times is, the DNA at work was poo-pooed. It wasn't. It was peer-reviewed by one of the top American journals in the world, and it was double-blind peer-reviewed. So we know that was conclusive. But I just brought a new book out, which is, again, that's gone through its own saga. It was released on October the 1st. We didn't actually, they sold out straight away. Again, Amazon, they sold out again. And all of a sudden, we didn't get books for another 6 weeks, and we had to change the front cover back to the original. I just kept quiet about it. I've never told anybody about that yet, but it's the new book. And again, all the hoo-ha in the background, they just think this story. It's. I'll be honest with you, it's like running uphill in flip-flops.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered about convincing people that don't want to believe. I'm only interested in people that want to hear the truth, that's got the intellectual capacity to go, you know what, you're right.
Yeah,
exactly. But it's the puzzle pieces that come together and that makes it a compelling story.
Absolutely.
And if you don't believe the puzzle pieces, then why try to make the puzzle?
Well said. I like that.
Yeah, sorry, it popped in my head. Sorry.
That's right. I'm going to use
Sometimes
that.
I have those things.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to use that one. That's absolutely perfect, and that's exactly it.
Credits. No, kidding.
No, perfect. I really like that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Marvelous. Whatever happened to Aaron? Mary Kelly. After that it stopped.
Yeah. So what happened was, after Mary Kelly, he then tried to kill his own sister. He attacked his sister with a knife. And his two brothers were Isaac and Wolf. They're the two brothers. So Wolf was only 5 years older. Isaac was a lot older. They were also Masons, which really gives the whole game away, which I just told you, which is in the new book. What they did was they gave him to the police. They just had enough of looking after him, because obviously they knew it was him. If you look at a picture of Isaac, you can see you can just see in his face what he had to live through, knowing it was him. His brother was the murderer. So the police took him with great difficulty outside of London, outside the public gaze. Now, what I'm telling you is what Scotland Yard told me. So this is actual fact from Scotland Yard, from the head of the whole of the CID that run the case at the time. So they took him to a police seaside home called Clarendon Villas in Hove, which is by Brighton, which is on the south coast, which is just exquisite. Best place to be in the summer, in my opinion. And he was identified with an unhesitating ID by Israel Swartz. And Israel Swartz saw him attacking, literally within 15 feet, attacking Elizabeth Stride shortly before she was murdered. Israel Swartz said that was the man he saw attacking Elizabeth Stride. But Israel Swartz wouldn't testify because it's said that he didn't want to give a fellow Jew up to Gentile justice, is what the words are. So they basically put him in charge under the charge of his brother. Now, I've linked his brother to another thing that brings this to reality as well, which is also in the book. And then he was under watch by two CID officers. I'll get those names in a minute. Anyway, then they put him in a workhouse, and then they transferred him to Stepney Workhouse, then into Colney Hatch Asylum, and then after 3 years they put him to Leavesden Asylum, where he died in March 24th, 1919 of gangrene, and he was age 54. That's what actually happened.
Wow.
That is very intriguing.
Yeah, it is.
But the fact that his brothers had enough.
Yeah. Well, only because he tried to kill his sister.
Yeah. I think it would be before that already, but that was the drop.
That was it, really. That was the straw was back. Yeah.
I believe it.
Ooh. But why would he want to try to kill his sister then? Actually,
no, it's interesting. We were thinking about this, about the escalation of the murders, and so why not murder or practice your technique and perfect it on prostitutes, because they were plentiful and easy targets, to then kill your sister, to then work your way up to murdering your mother. Because one of the things that came out in all this, which again is not public, well, not really public knowledge, which was given to me by the Marshal of Leavesden Asylum many, many years ago, that it was recorded that his mother sexually abused him. And that's that piece of the puzzle goes, when you fit it right at the end, you go, there you go, it's all complete.
Yep, completed the puzzle. Yeah.
That really did. I remember being told that. Obviously, that was massive.
It's amazing.
Absolutely, and it makes sense.
It really does.
Yeah.
So
I can even now in my head the jigsaw goes like, oh, there goes a piece, there goes. Oh, it fits.
Absolutely.
I'd like to take you back to the very, very beginning of your interview, where you mentioned some suspects. They're not suspects. The people that say were the Ripper. They were never suspects. Walter Sickert wasn't in England at the time of the murders. So Prince Albert Victor, Queen Victoria's grandson, he wasn't in every date of the murder. He wasn't even in London. And on one of the murder dates, he was actually with his mother, Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria was his alibi, so he wasn't even in London. He was never the Ripper. This was just a fantastical piece of fiction that was made up in the late 60s into the 70s. And people got, I want to believe. Absolute nonsense. Sir William Gould, 72, 73 years of age, very poor health, didn't match any of the eyewitness descriptions, and certainly wasn't driven around in a carriage by John Netley, so definitely not William Gould. James Maybrick, the diary, the Ripper diary. I know the owner of the diary, and we know that it's not real. It never was James Maybrick. And then they come in with his, well, I'll tell you, if it wasn't James Maybrick, it's got to be his brother, which is another guy that just made it up as he went along. Stupid Bruce Robinson, I think, just a complete work of nonsense, to be honest. It doesn't fit anything at all to do with this whatsoever. Jill the Ripper, like I said, Mary Piercy, definitely not. And each person you go into, there's a description of why, or there's a reason why they're just not at all,
Yeah, like you said, it's just people want to believe it's that and that person.
Oh yeah, Charles Letchmere.
Without.
That's the latest. I always get Charles Letchmere. Now his real name was that, but he gave his name as Charles Cross. He was the first man to find the first victim, Polly Nichols, and purely because of that, he became a suspect. And the number of people say it's definitely him, just because he was on his way to work. You're just like, please,
Yeah.
It would be too easy if it was that.
Yeah. They even talked about a shark with a skirt and a big knife. Lots of conspiracy theories.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Seen it, done it, heard it. Every part of the way. Yeah. There was one interesting conspiracy theory about Mary Kelly, that Dizzy Williams was the killer because her husband worked at an abortion clinic and was told that he had an affair with Mary Kelly, and that's why she committed the murders.
Wow. On that, just remembering what actually happened to Mary Kelly.
Yeah.
So the one thing I ask many people that come with me when I walk around Whitechapel is this: if you look at the crime scene, it's definitely Mary Kelly. There's no way you would do that without any knowledge or any experience. There's just no way. But apart from that, would you vomit because of he skinned her. He took all the flesh off a thigh bone and put it to the bone and put it on the side table. He took her face completely off. He ripped it to shreds. He took her intestines and hung it round the room. He took a heart and boiled it. He literally took a liver and put it between her feet, which matched the other 4 victims. Head to the left, the position of the body. If one person murdered Mary Kelly in that manner, which is horrendous, how come it fits the other 4?
Yeah, I can't even imagine doing something like that. And the most horrendous thing is they put a picture in the paper, and I really can't imagine that. It's horrible to see, and it still is. When I looked up everything I could find about Jack the Ripper, that was the main thing what stuck in my head. The picture of Mary Kelly on the bed, actual police picture.
Yeah.
Horrible. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
this person knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah.
It when you actually there's a Bishopsgate Library. Okay, that's right where the murder is. Not far. In fact, it's 5 minutes from where Mary Kelly was murdered. The library's still there. If you go and do the research there, so anybody that's interested, and look at some of the books, this is what's written. This was an over sensationalized story of a handful of women in the area that were chosen not at random. It's literally hung on the press, and it literally has stuck in our psyche globally for over a century.
Yeah.
When you unravel it and unpick it, and don't forget, I didn't just do this overnight. It was a simple story of a schizophrenic madman that was let loose over 10 weeks to murder these women. And he was schizophrenic. He was clearly insane. The police knew they had him. The police arrested him. The police put him in prison, in an asylum. There is another reason for that, which is in the new book. And that's what happened. And he died in an asylum. To all those people that want to make this a fantastical story, please do. But I haven't got the time of day for people like you.
No, exactly. Your book, is it already out?
Yeah, it was released on the 1st of October, but it's all fresh now. It's really out now. You can buy it on Amazon. Well, you can buy it from me at the jacktherippertour.co.uk if you want a signed copy. We do graphic novels, so we've got 3 issues. Issue 4 will be out next month. And that is the full story, the blow-by-blow account of the full story. I really enjoy. The original book's out. It's like a collector's item now. I found out yesterday, if you want that book, you can get it from me for £20. If you go on Amazon, it's £150. Because they're yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I do remember there was the Final Solution written in the 70s by, I say it was the Prince Albert of Royalty or whatever, Stephen. And I think his books get fetching over £1,000. So if you get a signed copy from me, wait till I cork it. The book's value will go considerably.
I will be rich.
But you can always see me on Facebook. I'm Russell Stephen Edwards with a PH. I'm on the Experience, which is the one that really gives the story. I'm on Twitter, TikTok, you name it, I'm on it. Instagram, Threads, the lot. But just look up Jack the Ripper. I'm sure you'll find me or my name.
Oh yes.
I've got you all over. I'm like a personal stalker.
I just wanted. I didn't say it this time. Normally I'm the one. Watch out, she's a stalker. But
I admit it. If the name Jack the Ripper pops up, I'm hooked. Yeah. So I was sharing out the last couple of weeks, and I will buy those books for sure. And do you give the tours in
Yeah,
London, in
yes,
Whitechapel?
public tours,
Okay.
private tours. So most people get very intimate stories. So most tours, in fact, all tours, they march you through the streets. They don't even stand in the right places half the time. I've heard it. So the Guston Street graffito, the handwritten chalk on the wall. I've heard a tour guide say that was spray painted, and you think these
Yeah.
tour guides just reprehensible. Really, this needs to be regulated because they just make it up. Facial condition of Catherine Eddowes. Someone said he cuts a face off like this. I said, well, that's not true. So people aren't getting the full story with me. You don't just get the story; you get who he was. But I also take you through those streets and let you experience those streets the way they should. And I take my time. I don't just march you from one stop to the other.
Yeah.
So yeah, and they're on my page. The website, thejacktherippatour.co.uk. Yeah.
I am so going to start a bucket list because I have way too many things to do in England now.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going home. Yeah. We have to do it.
Yes, we do. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Scott. Nice for you.
You have a new buyer because my wife wants to buy it. Your books.
Yeah. The definitive reveal. Yeah, you can just buy it from me. It certainly will cost you 150 quid. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I actually unravel the Guston Street graffito, this mystery that's been there since the night of the 29th of September 1888. I unraveled that. I've unraveled why he murdered them in the way that he did, and I've unraveled the reason why, other than Israel Schwartz, why he wasn't incarcerated and tried. So that's it, all in the new book. But the big significant, the big thing, is a barrister we've been working confidentially, which is not confidential anymore, on the case to take it to the High Court because we've got enough of a case. So whenever you see a suspect, think, would that get into court? Our case will. And the barrister, which was just phenomenal, has stated this officially. If the newly discovered DNA evidence that directly links Aaron Kosminski to the shawl that was discovered at the night of the murder of Catherine Eddowes, it would have been justifiable for the coroner in 1880, if it was available then, for the coroner to arrest Aaron Kosminski and prosecute him for the murder of Catherine Eddowes and thereby the other 4 Ripper murders. So that's official.
Okay.
Cool.
One thing we miss are the titles of the books. One is called Naming Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
And the other one is?
It's called Naming Jack the Ripper, The Definitive Reveal. But when you look on Amazon, it's just the same. They've just called it Naming Jack the Ripper in the UK.
Okay.
It's just the upgraded version now.
Cool.
We are going.
We'll find it.
I'm sure you will.
Oh yes.
Absolutely.
I can find anything on the internet, so I can find your books as well.
And we purchase it by Russell directly and not on Amazon.
Nope.
Absolutely. Do we have another question in the chat or?
No, I just had a couple of. I showed it in the meanwhile. Scott said Russell is an amazing person.
Thank you.
Victoria says, Susan Victoria says, I need to pick up a book. And he says, Scott says, one of my favorite interviews. So thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
This is the book.
We need an amazing guest to do that. Oh, that's a good cover.
That's the one that is out of print. These are collectors now. These are the ones that go for 150 quid. I sell them for 20.
Okay.
The new book
and then we get a signed copy?
Of course.
Oh, okay.
Of course you do, yeah.
So they're both.
We're going buy the books at Russell.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Don't do it on Amazon.
Yeah, we will share out everything. This interview will be on Spotify as well. Like I told you, I do hope TikTok is not rejecting this because of some words. We had some issues before.
Yeah,
for that
if there's
serial
a couple of
killer.
words in there,
Yes, so but I will try, and if I get a penalty, so be it.
totally worth it.
I will try.
Is-
Yeah, absolutely worth it.
That's the From Hell letter, the only letter that I think is real.
Wow.
Oh
I've
my
seen a
god,
picture of it. Yeah, I've seen
that's
a
cool.
picture.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
signed by. Yeah.
Wasn't that the Christmas idea? A package with a copy
That's
of
it.
a letter.
That's what I've done.
Ex-
Yeah, that's from there.
Exactly.
That's from there.
Yes.
Wow.
5 reports, including the McNaught Memorandum, 4 letters, and a partridge in a pear tree, and the 3 comics. Yeah, all signed by me. Yeah.
All
Wow.
sign where you, yeah, lay 2 aside, and I will get back to you on
Sure.
it. Yeah,
Sure.
I will arrange it, and I sorted out with Shane and Samantha.
Yeah.
Oh
So
yes, yes.
absolutely, absolutely.
I know where my money's going now.
Well, it was in this hand and not the other.
Yeah.
In January or whenever.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah.
Do you
Um.
want to see his face before you go?
Oh
Yeah, I
yes,
want to
yes,
see his face.
Of
yes.
course,
I've seen
this
so
this
many pictures.
this came from a facial reconstruction expert, because I've got all
Yeah.
the family photographs given to me by the family, and so this hasn't been shown anywhere. The picture we went out with was the 16-year-old picture when he was 16 years of age, but this is him when he was 23. This is the face, the actual face of Jack the Ripper.
It
Oh,
does look like Holmes a little
yeah.
because
The high end.
yeah,
There you go.
he is exactly like I imagine him to be.
Yeah.
The face.
Well, not a demon, not certainly
No, no.
No,
uncanny.
absolutely not. We
Under,
forgot something. You had plaques made for every victim. It
yeah,
will
the
be
blue plaques. That's right. Now that's
yes.
yeah. That's so the original blue plaque for Catherine Eddowes. I unveiled that where she lived in Merridale Street in Wolverhampton many years ago with the Wolverhampton Society. Amazing honour, and I felt it's now the time. Now we know it's him. It's just him. And if all those people that don't believe, just please get on with yourself, wherever you want to do. But we've solved this. So we thought it was the right time to pay tribute, which should be made to the victims. So these
Yeah.
tours, a lot of these tours just, I would say, rape Whitechapel. They take the money and they run, and they make a lot of money.
He's gone.
Oh,
No. No, no. His internet is down, I think.
oh no. He was
Um,
almost at the end of the story.
yeah.
I hope he's
Well,
going to
I
come
know
back.
he's trying to come back.
I think so. I don't see anything yet, but
Okay, we keep our eyes open. But I know he has plaques for every victim, and they all
yeah,
look alike. And there's the name on it, and I think the birth date and the day they were killed by Jack the Ripper.
well, he's
And
gone now. I
yeah,
hope he's going to try to get back in, but if he doesn't, then probably some internet trouble
yeah,
because he grabbed his phone and then it was completely gone.
absolutely. I do have the pictures, I think. I have to check where. Uh,
Let me
because
check.
I did my homework on this one. Jack the Ripper. Let me see. Let me see. Let me see. I'm a, ah
Did you find it?
yes, I found
Oh,
the
you clicked it
plaques.
away.
Oh, 5 of them were made
Oh,
by
nice.
him. Yeah, and let me see. Yes,
Yeah, Annie
and
Chapman,
Chapman,
Elizabeth
Elizabeth,
Stride, Catherine
Catherine,
Eddowes.
Yes. And
and
Mary
Mary
Jane.
Jane.
Yes.
Very nice.
So
Ah, he's back.
that's what I forgot. That was what I forgot.
Sorry.
There you are again.
You know what I say to people? Don't call me because I'm doing a live interview. And the first thing people do is, I know, I'll call him right now. Sorry about that. Sorry. So yeah. What
I
we say,
always
the blue plaques. That's right. So basically,
yes.
it's now time to pay tribute to the victims. This is what this story is about. And they highlight the plight of these women and the poverty of East End at that time. This is the first ever attack on women in history.
Yeah.
Just purely women. And it's never been really properly, we want to solve it. Not solve it. We want it to be officially solved, to say, this is over. This is what we want. Because too many people are making the money on the backs of these women that were butchered by a man. So that's what the plaques will come out. They'll be made they're finished on Monday. They'll be collected, and then we're going to unveil them in March next year. Now, in the spring. Now, it wasn't just me. Paul is an amazingly gifted artist called Ants at Keep It Street. He designed the plaques, and each flower on the plaque has a certain meaning. Wisdom, grace, honesty, purity, hope. Each one has a significance, and Edelweiss is one of them, which is my favourite song with my son from The Sound of Music. And they've been made by a guy called Robin Lumley at Lumley Designs in Wolverhampton, actually round the corner from where Catherine Eddowes grew up, was born, sorry. And we're doing another thing that we're keeping confidential at the moment, but it's going to be very significant. And if it goes well, I'm sure it'll go well. We're basically turning the tide on this murderer, because I did go and visit. If you go visit the graves, which is an enormous, great respect thing for me to do, he's buried only 2 miles away, so he's only like within spitting distance, if you like, and it feels like he's still got a hole. We want to change that. And that's the significance. And it's Ant's design on the plaques, and it's Ant's creation that we're going to be giving. And we're putting the face on this, what we're going to be doing. And that's coming out. Hopefully, we'll try and get it done in February, but we're going to do it when it's warmer, because we want to do a big unveiling. We want to promote it the correct way. We want the right people there. And we want to send this message that this story of Jack the Ripper is finally over, which has taken me another 10 years to actually prove not just beyond all reason, but I did that 10 years ago. You'd have to be really stupid to ignore the facts of what we've got now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's marvelous. So you have to put money aside, Shane. So if it's going to be in March, we take the train and we be there in a couple of hours. We can be there while revealing the plaques and go back the same day.
You know what? I've actually asked Prince William to come and unveil them.
Okay.
You have?
I haven't heard back yet.
Wow,
I haven't heard back.
Wow.
Because he wants he discusses and supports the plight of the homeless. So do I. Yeah. We're doing something for charity for the homeless, for this, and for abused women as well. Two things very big for me. And yes, and obviously I've not heard back from him yet because he's a busy man. But also the families are going to be there at the unveiling, so you'll see the families of the victims. It's such a proud moment. It's sort of, I didn't realize it'd come this far when I bought the shawl. I just thought I'd prove it was there at the scene of the crime. That's all I ever started out. Here I am trying to change history in another way now, to actually stop this nonsense of Jack the Ripper, which is a nonsense. Jack the Ripper's a letter written by a journalist, nothing to do with the murder. Everybody's connected it to the murder, and that's what we want to do. We want to put the world right, and it's about time.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, job good done. Well done. Very nice.
I'm very stoked.
Yeah, I'm glad it's finally finished. The mystery is actually completely over now.
10 years ago, it just took another 10 years to get everything, to convince people, how just blinkered they are from they've believed over the years.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Definitely.
So the people,
Yeah.
Dr. Yorilu Halainen, I would have not been able to do this without him. Karen Miller, the direct female descendants of Catherine Eddowes, who gave me a DNA in the first place. The descendants of the direct female descendants of Kosminski's sister. The Kosminski family, who I know several of, who have all been very supportive. All the other families that I know, even families descended from eyewitnesses, I know as well. So I thank all of those people and so many people on social media who really do support me. And it's those people that keep me going.
Yeah, better. You're very interesting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. For sure that they all cooperated, and um, we're here for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I
Oh,
need to save up money because now we have to go there.
yes, you
Be
do.
more than welcome. I actually don't. I live 4 hours drive away, so it's
Okay.
I only ever do tours on Saturdays. You know, it's the only one day I'll do them. You know, I've done 35 in London, and now I live in a beautiful part of the world that's a nicer pace for me. You know.
Yeah. Lot quieter.
Oh, I have solved another unsolved true crime in the UK. It's under wraps. It caused a big furore 2 years ago. That's not the end of the story. There is a lot more, but I'm not allowed to speak about it. And I am. I started last February on the third unsolved murder cold case, which is very big in the US. So it's not just the Ripper. Even though that I support this very strongly, I've done another one, and I've got a third one on its way.
Woo.
Okay. As soon as it comes out, are you coming back to tell us about it?
Yeah, of course I will. Of course I will. We're at documentary stage at the moment, if that helps.
Okay, okay. Very interesting.
Sam
And
states, very
yeah,
beautiful to see what you're doing for the victims. They always get forgotten.
that exactly. In fact, this whole story's been glorifying a murderer. This is what's happened. The murder,
Yeah,
and in most cases, you can name serial killers, but could you name any of the victims? John Wayne Gacy,
exactly.
one victim from John Wayne Gacy. Could you name one victim of Ted Bundy? Just one. You know,
Yeah,
Peter. Um, Over here, Dennis Nilsson in the 80s murdered lots of men, about 17 men he murdered, and then buried some of them under the floorboards, and flushed the body parts down the flesh down the toilet, which is how he got caught. You know, could you name one murder victim? But you can remember the names of the murderers.
Yeah,
Eileen,
yeah,
name one victim from Eileen Warnos, female serial killer. The other one is Edwin Kemper. Just, it's about time. This should really be about the victims,
yeah, it should.
absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I was lucky I knew one of the victims from Jack the Ripper, but just one name I knew. But yeah, if you look at that way, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
they should get in the history books, the victims.
Yeah.
yeah. I think we should turn the world around and just start about talking about the victims of serial killers,
Yeah,
Why
not not the serial killers.
there's an interesting one, a guy called Dennis Rader, BTK, quite a se-
yeah,
yeah, quite
yeah,
a serial killer. And again, these people fit into society. He certainly did. And he was asked why did he choose his victims. He said he just got stuck on them. He got kind of stuck on them. And again, what he used to do is used to follow them, learn their routine, learn their daily patterns. So
yeah,
know what they do, which is probably what the Ripper did to his victims. Just follow them.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
see what they were doing when they walked where.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah. We
scary if
had
you
a
think
serial
about it.
killer. Yeah, we had a serial killer as well, first female, probably around 70 something. And that was a case of opportunity. She had a house and she rented rooms. Um, Poor people came there. So she had the victim sent over. But it was the first known serial killer, and there's not much to find from her, but um, she put poison in food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how you can imagine. If they didn't have a gun, a female serial killer would poison. Believe it or not, there was a woman doing that in Brighton, a serial killer in Brighton that did that with chocolates.
Yep. Heard about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scary woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remind me not to take chocolate from women. I'm scared now.
Especially if they bake you a cake. I love pop.
Shit, I like cake.
Your feet up, love.
Now I get nervous to get eat cake.
Away if there's a coffin in the living room.
Oh.
But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We came to the end.
Yep.
Samantha is stating something again. Social media is still
praising the murderers.
Yes.
Yeah.
They do. Yeah.
Oh no. Susan, don't start with me. I'm not supposed to take chocolate from her.
Yeah, now it's going the wrong way.
Yeah.
So we're done with the interview, and my thanks are big. 5'2", I always say. That's how big I am. So it was a blast, and so interesting, and for sure I'm going to order those 2 Christmas buckets. It won't be here for Christmas, but it will be coming this way.
Yes.
And yeah, you may close it down, Shane.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, Russell.
Thank you
for joining us. It was a very, like she said, very interesting story, and I know much more about the Jack the Ripper case than I did before. Because unlike Mary, I am not very good at serial killer stories, but I do find it very intriguing, especially the mysteries, and the mystery solved. So thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for sharing the things you do for the victims and the families, because it is very intriguing to me, and I think the rest of the viewers as well. So keep up the good job, definitely.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And good luck on the upcoming cold cases.
Thank you.
Because we would like to know what happened with that as well in the end. Since you're not allowed to talk about it now, we have to get you back in the show if you're up for it, of course.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Be an honor.
We are going to take you out of this live and put you in the back, and we are going to finish the show. If you want to hang out afterwards, then feel free to stay. If you have other things to do, that's also a possibility, of course. Thank you very much, and goodbye for now.
Bye.
All right. Well, that was a wow. Yes, definitely. It was very much a wow factor. Because there was a couple of guests that were watching, like Scott, my wife, Samantha, that were like, wow. All right. Didn't see that coming.
Absolutely.
This was amazing.
Yeah, I saw him come by a few months ago, and I was hooked on the story. Hooked.
Yeah.
So I followed everything he posted, and because I'm so intrigued by the story, because of the similarity of the name, it's written different, but if I translate my name, it's pronounced the same, and that's why it stuck all those years. And I'm so glad it's solved finally for all the victims, and it's great book and it's great work for the victims. And
yeah, it is.
possibly the most important thing. So, yes, thank you, Niels. He thinks it's a great guy.
Yep.
Intriguing story. Yeah. So, the next unsolved murder will be solved again in
Yes.
another um, interview talk as soon as he's allowed to talk about. So, keep his site in mind, follow him,
Yes.
look for him. He has a like page. He's on TikTok, on Instagram, all over the place. Look
Yep.
for Russell Edwards, or naming Jack the Ripper is enough to find him. So,
Yeah, I think we're gonna leave it like that.
yeah, I think so too.
There's nothing more
Next
to
week,
add. Just look up
no,
Russell and you'll find him.
absolutely. And we'll be sharing a lot on our like page in a group. I was
My group.
sharing it, and Raven's Paranormal was sharing it, and there will be in more. So keep a close eye, and we see you again next Wednesday.
Yes, we will.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for watching. See you in the